Let's talk about the Premier League race for Champions League football. The title is done and dusted. That will go to Liverpool almost certainly. The relegation battle is pretty much done and dusted. Leicester City and Southampton are already relegated, and Ipswich Town will most likely join them this weekend. But looking at the top five, because of course this season there are 5 spots for the Champions League. That has now been confirmed instead of the usual 4 because of the performance of English clubs in European competitions. There is now 5 spots to fight for, but the battle is more intense than ever. Just 3 points separating Nottingham Forest in 3rd and Aston Villa in 7th. All of them very much having an opportunity to get into that top 5 and get Champions League football for, in Forest's case, the first time in 40 years, just over probably, since the European Cup days. Villa themselves went on a similar drought of around 40 years as well, but they are back in the competition this season too, and they're looking to be in it next season as well. Newcastle, they missed out on Champions League football. They missed out on European football this season, of course, because of their performance last season, but that has allowed them to not only win a domestic cup for the first time in 7 years, but it's also allowed them to focus on the Premier League as well. They get up in 4th place, doing a fantastic job. Manchester City have had a wobble this season, to say the least, but they still very much have an opportunity of getting back into the Champions League for next season. And Chelsea, they've not been in the Champions League for 3-4 seasons, probably longer actually. They've got a real chance too. It's a really, really interesting race between these guys, and it just speaks volumes that the side that's in 7th place has won 5 games in a row, is absolutely flying, and of course battered Newcastle recently as well in the Premier League. So I'm going to look at the remaining fixtures for these clubs, give my thoughts on who is most likely to be in the Champions League and who will end up having to have a relative consolation prize of getting into the Europa League or the Conference League. So we'll start with Nottingham Forest. Obviously a very impressive win against Tottenham Hotspur last time out in the Premier League, that 2-1 victory, and which really did flatter Tottenham. Tottenham were really poor in that game, did not take the chances at all. But let's have a look at Forest's remaining games here. So there's 5 games remaining in the Premier League, plus of course that FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City. Now that of course will tire the players out. They will be playing their full side for that, but you look at the game they've got after that, Brentford at home. I would heavily back Forest to get a win there. I wouldn't rule out them getting at least a draw against Palace away as well. I mean, Palace of course getting hammered by Newcastle not too long ago, of course, 5-0 wasn't it? So I would very much wager that Palace are maybe going to struggle against Forest. The Forest side that have been very good, particularly away from home at times. They've got an East Midlands derby as well against Leicester City. Now Leicester of course are already relegated, but wouldn't they like to spoil the party of their rivals from down the road? I think they very much would, but I don't see it happening. Leicester have been awful this season, and their defensive frailties will most likely be very much exploited by Forest. They beat them very handily at the King Power earlier this season, did Forest as well. West Ham United away as well. I mean, West Ham have been awful. They've got, if anything, they've probably got worse under Graham Potter. I genuinely think they have, and that's really saying something. So I think Forest will win there most likely. And then final day, Forest against Chelsea. That could well be a game to see who gets into the Champions League next season. That could well be that. But honestly, given Forest form at home, I would back them to do well. So honestly, I do think that Forest are pretty big favourites really to get into that top 5. Maybe they won't quite be top of that group as it were. I mean, Arsenal and Liverpool, they're gone. They're going to be fine. It's only 6 points to Arsenal, but I think Arsenal have got enough. They've got real confidence, especially after beating Real Madrid so handily as well. So I think they'll be fine. But let's have a look at Newcastle. Now, Newcastle don't have any European games or any FA Cup games to worry about. It's just 5 games to the end of the season now. Now, the next game, of course, is against Ipswich Town. That game will relegate Ipswich most likely. I think it'd be quite tight, but I would back Newcastle to get the victory there. Brighton away. Now, that could be awkward because, of course, Brighton did knock out Newcastle from the FA Cup not that long ago. So I think that could be quite tricky for them. Chelsea at home. I'd back Newcastle there all the way, but the next game, Arsenal away. Now, Arsenal might be focused on the Champions League. That might help Newcastle out, but that is going to be a tough old game, that one. Final game of the season, Everton at home. They're going to win that 100%. I mean, Everton they could have the deck chairs out. Their season's done. They'll be fine. So I think that'll be quite. I think Newcastle have got a good shot there. I wouldn't say their fixtures are quite as favourable as Forest though. So Newcastle might be borderline. Let's have a look at Manchester City. Now they have the FA Cup to contend with as well. I think they're the strong favourites really to win the FA Cup, to be honest. They did beat Nottingham Forest very well at the Etihad Stadium not that long ago, and I think it was a draw at the City Ground, so I'd back Man City to win that one personally. So I expect they'll have an FA Cup final to play too, but that will be after their final game of the season against Fulham. Man City against Wolves. I'm sure Wolves beat Man City at Molineux, didn't they? Or they got a good result against them anyway. Maybe it was a late draw, something like that. But I would probably wager that Man City are going to win that. I mean, Wolves are safe now. But of course, Wolves, they're in good form. They're a good team. They're a team that's very awkward for Man City to play against. Southampton, they only narrowly beat Southampton at the Etihad Stadium early in the season. That could be an awkward game, you know. Man City do struggle against teams that they really should be beating, if you know what I mean. The teams that they should be beating very handily, they do struggle against. Then again, they found a way against Everton the other week, so there is that. And of course, sorry, I've just missed out one of these matches. How my bad. They're playing at Aston Villa as well today, as I record this, later today on Tuesday. Now that's a huge game for the top 5 for the Champions League spots. That is massive. Given Aston Villa, I don't know. I mean, they really played well against Newcastle, didn't they? There's no European hangover there for them, clearly. I think that could be a draw or something, most likely. I'll be honest, I'm going to go with a draw with that one. But Southampton, yeah, I would back them to beat Southampton narrowly. Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth, of course, beat them at the Dean Court Stadium, the Vitality Stadium, as it's officially known these days. So it's going to be awkward, but I'll probably back Man City there. But Fulham away, that has all the hallmarks for final day banana skin. So we'll see how they get on there. I wouldn't say overly difficult fixtures. I think Newcastle have the hardest out of the 3 we've seen so far. Let's have a look at Chelsea's games. Now, Chelsea have the Conference League to contend with as well, but I don't really see that factoring into things because, I mean, against Djurgården, I think they're just going to play the reserves, really, like they have throughout the competition. I don't think it's really going to affect the Premier League, but their fixtures in the Prem, these are tricky games, man. I mean, yeah, Everton at home, slam dunk home win 100%, but Liverpool at home. I mean, Liverpool might well have won the Premier League by this point, which might help Chelsea out, but playing Liverpool is never easy. Newcastle away. Man United at home. You think that'd be an easy win for them, but Man United are so hard to predict. Man United do have the Europa League to contend with as well, so that might help. They're probably going to win, Chelsea, but I don't think it'd be easy. And then final game that we've already covered, Forest away. I think that's really tricky, I think that's really tricky. To see them climb into that top 5 is a big ask from there. And Villa. Let's have a look at Villa. They've been in and around mid-table most of the season. They've struggled at times, but they're out of Europe now, so there's no kind of fears about a European hangover effect. They play Man City away there. FA Cup semi-final against Palace, of course, coming up after that this weekend. Then they play Fulham at home. I think they'll be fine there. Bournemouth away, that could be tricky. Tottenham at home. They'll probably win there. Man United away. It's against the Champions League. Oh boy. So yeah, that's just going over all the fixtures and everything. I probably should have done a little predictor thing to actually put my predictions in and see where I think they're going to go. But I'll just do it kind of offhand, off the cuff. So the 3 teams that I'm going to back to get into this top 5, obviously in addition to Arsenal and Liverpool, I'm going to go for Forest. I'm going to go for Villa. And I'm going to go for Man City. I think Newcastle's games are tough. They could do it, and I'm not saying they won't. And I want them to do it, to be honest, because they're one of the ones that usually aren't in the top 4. Of course, they were a couple seasons ago, but it doesn't really happen that often. But I'm going to go for Forest. I'm going to go for Man City, and I'm going to go for Villa. I'm going to go for them 3 to be in the top 5 alongside Arsenal and Liverpool. Now, that will mean that the Europa League places, because there's 2 of them, in addition to the FA Cup, I do back Man City to win the FA Cup. So that will mean that 6th and 7th go into the Europa League automatically. So that would mean that Chelsea and Newcastle will be in the Europa League. And the Conference League spot, because that would go to Newcastle for winning the EFL Cup, but they are already in the top 7 at that point. That means that would go, as things stand, to Bournemouth. Bournemouth in European football. Has that ever happened before? It can't have done. It can't, unless we're talking about the Anglo-Italian Cup or the Intertoto Cup or something from back in the day. But I'm talking about a proper European competition. I think, I think that'd be the first time ever for them. So yeah, well done to them if they manage it. Of course, Fulham just below them. They're gunning for that position. Brighton as well. They've both been in Europe in not too distant in the past. Fulham about 15 years actually. Now I think about it, but it did happen back in the Europa League days. And they beat Juventus in that competition as well. I think they did. They did beat Juve, didn't they? But yeah, those are my kind of thoughts today, guys. I mean, it's very tight. It's going to be very entertaining. Who are you backing to get into that top 5? Get into the Champions League. Let us know your picks in the comments below. And of course, keep subscribed to thefootballchronicle.com to see much more content on the world of football just like this. Have a fantastic day, guys, and see you very soon.